Now here's a game nobody was asking for. Ikari III brings an end to the Ikari trilogy. The Famicom port of the first game was truly dire. While the sequel showed some improvement, it still wasn't great. Both of those Famicom versions were ported by Micronics, though, while the Ikari III port was programmed by SNK themselves, demonstrating once again just how close the relationship was with K Amusement Leasing. Naturally, Ikari III was an arcade game originally, and it is the final game in the Ikari series, which should tell you something about how well it was received. The story of the game is that the president's daughter has been kidnapped by mercenaries. Are you a bad enough dude to get her back? What you're going to immediately notice in Ikari III is that this is no longer a run and gun. Instead, it's a kind of top-view beat-em-up. The A button kicks, the B button punches, and hitting both simultaneously performs a jump kick. That jump kick is the most vital move in the game, as you're invulnerable while performing it. So what you're going to want to do when fighting enemies is just jump kick over and over and over again. Now there are a few circumstances where you will want to punch. Punching can briefly stun an enemy, and you can stun lock some of them, including some bosses. There aren't a whole lot of power-ups in Ikari III. You now have a life bar, so there's also these hearts that you collect to recover it. But you only lose health from getting punched and kicked. Getting shot or hit with an explosion is instantly fatal. And the health power-ups tend to be placed at the very beginning of stages, right when you don't need them. These faces are supposed to be extra lives, but considering I got a game over the next time I died after I picked up the only 2 of those in the game, I'm kind of dubious if they even work. There are also 2 weapon pickups. The white W gives you a grenade that you throw by pressing B. It has a microscopic splash radius, and so you'll only hit enemies if you get them dead on, and if they're active. Inactive enemies are apparently invulnerable. The black W gives you a gun with 10 bullets. You fire those by pressing B as well, and you can only fire in the cardinal directions. No diagonals. There's a few points in the game where you will be given a gun, like Stage 4, which takes place underwater and turns the game into a shoot-'em-up. And for 2 of the bosses, the game suddenly gives you a gun with unlimited bullets. The only other pickup in the game are diamonds, which you can find in the underwater stage, and they're just worth a few more points. Well, there are 2 more pickups, but they're really the same thing, and they're not really pickups. When you approach an oil drum or a rock that's laying on the ground, and hit the B button, you toss it up and drop it down, and it kills everyone on the screen. No, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially with the rock. You have 3 lives and 3 continues with which to complete Ikari III. For playing out most of the stages, that isn't too bad, but when you reach certain bosses whose every attack is an instant death, and whose damage radius is both larger and more long-lasting than it appears, you can burn through those lives pretty quickly. However, there is a trick. Pressing up, right, and A on a controller for an inactive player starts the 2-player mode. As long as there's an active player, it won't go to the game over screen and force you to use one of your precious continues. So what you do is play until you've lost 2 lives, then bring in the second player, play until you've lost 2 lives, then bring in the first player, and alternate back and forth. If for some reason you do want to play this 2-player, be aware that your attacks can hit each other. I noticed a major problem with Ikari III in the enemy behavior. Enemies have no collision with the terrain in the game. They'll walk right through walls and barriers like they're not there. You, on the other hand, are stopped by those. Sometimes this just looks sloppy, but other times it can be really annoying. Another issue with the enemies is that everyone kind of looks the same. The grunts that you take out with 1 punch look exactly the same as the guys you have to hit with 10 jump kicks, who look exactly the same as the guys who throw grenades when you walk up to them. At least the ones who come in carrying something over their heads are easy to tell apart, though those guys sometimes glitch out and come in without carrying their thing. There's one more significant thing to mention about Ikari III. In the series, we've been following the adventures of Ralph and Clark. Ralph wears red and Clark wears blue. Until Ikari III. In this game, Ralph wears blue and Clark wears red. In Japan, Ikari III doesn't seem to have made much of an impact. It seems like Ikari III is relegated to being a footnote. And as for myself, I'm not really sure it's better than Ikari II. Ikari II isn't good, and Ikari III is a step up technically, but the gameplay has been reduced to a low-end beat-em-up. You're reduced to one basic strategy, and it's not a very interesting one. Ikari III killed the series, and this Famicom port really shows why.